The document arrived by secure courier at 11:47 p.m. Classified. Eyes only. Prime Minister's signature required. Keir Starmer opened it, read the terms, then read them again. Chinese investment, 50 billion pounds. British infrastructure, energy, technology, telecommunications, in exchange, access, data, influence, security compromises that would make MI5 scream. Starmer had a choice: sign and save his economic agenda, or refuse and watch Britain's finances collapse. He signed. At that moment, British national security was sold to the Chinese Communist Party, and Xi Jinping had just bought influence over Britain's prime minister that would last for years. How did it get here? July 2024, Labour won power with massive spending promises: NHS investment, infrastructure projects, green energy transition, price tag, hundreds of billions. Problem: Britain was broke. Post Brexit economy struggling, tax revenue insufficient, borrowing expensive. Starmer needed money fast, without raising taxes that would destroy his popularity. August of 2024, China made contact, not publicly, through intermediaries, private channels. Message was simple: we have money. You need money. Let's talk. Starmer should have refused immediately. Previous governments had spent years reducing Chinese influence. Huawei banned from 5G, Chinese companies blocked from sensitive sectors, security services warning about infiltration. But Starmer was desperate, and Xi Jinping knew it. September 2024, secret negotiations began, not through Foreign Office, not with security services involved, through special advisors and friendly businessmen. Chinese offer kept growing: 10 billion pounds for infrastructure, 15 billion pounds for energy projects, 25 billion pounds for technology investment. Numbers too big to refuse. Economic transformation possible, but the conditions were buried in details. Chinese companies must get contracts. Chinese technology must be used. Chinese personnel must have access. And most dangerous, British security services couldn't vet Chinese nationals involved. MI5. Director wasn't consulted. Defense chiefs weren't informed. Parliament wasn't told. Just Starmer and a handful of advisors making decisions that would compromise national security. October 2024, first deal was signed. Chinese investment in British energy sector, solar farms, wind projects, battery technology, publicly announced as partnership for green future. Reality: Chinese Communist Party linked companies now controlled critical British infrastructure, and buried in contracts, data access, personnel placement, technology transfer requirements. Security services only learned about it from press release. MI5. Director requested emergency meeting. Prime Minister: this is catastrophic security risk. Starmer dismissed concerns. We need the investment. We'll manage the risks. Translation: I've already decided. Don't bother me with security. November 2024, second deal was bigger. Chinese investment in British telecommunications, 5G networks, fiber optics, data centers. Everything previous governments had spent years keeping Chinese companies away from. Security chiefs were unanimous: this cannot happen. Chinese access to UK communications infrastructure is unacceptable. Starmer overruled them. We have safeguards in place. The safeguards were worthless. Chinese engineers would have physical access. Chinese software would run systems. Chinese government would have backdoors. Everything MI5 warned about Starmer was allowing to happen. December 2024, the nuclear deal was announced. Chinese investment in British nuclear power, new reactors, existing facilities, research programs, 20 billion pounds, largest single foreign investment in British history. Also, most dangerous, Chinese state-owned companies controlling British nuclear infrastructure, access to sensitive sites, technology shared, personnel embedded. Former Defense Secretary called it greatest security compromise since the Cambridge spies. Starmer called it pragmatic partnership for energy security. January 2025, MI5. Director resigned in protest. Unprecedented. Intelligence chiefs don't resign publicly. But this was an extraordinary situation. Prime Minister systematically compromising national security despite explicit warnings. Resignation letter was blunt: I cannot serve a government that prioritizes short-term economic gain over long-term national security. Starmer replaced him with someone more compliant, someone who wouldn't ask difficult questions. February 2025. The technology transfer deal was the worst yet. British universities partnering with Chinese institutions, research collaboration, student exchanges, joint programs. Sounds innocent, wasn't. Chinese military linked universities gaining access to British research, cutting edge technology, military applications, AI development. Everything China wanted to steal Britain was now giving freely in exchange for money. Security services documented Chinese intelligence officers enrolled as students. Chinese researchers photographing sensitive facilities. Chinese partners copying British innovations. Starmer ignored all warnings. We can't stop scientific collaboration. But this wasn't collaboration. It was systematic intellectual property theft with government approval. March 2025, then came the infrastructure deal that crossed every red line. Chinese companies building British railways, roads, bridges, ports, including ports used by Royal Navy, infrastructure near military bases, systems connected to defense networks. Defense chiefs were horrified. Prime Minister, this gives China physical access to military adjacent infrastructure. Starmer dismissed it. They're just building railways. But Chinese construction meant Chinese workers, Chinese technology, Chinese control systems, and intelligence services knew many construction workers were Chinese intelligence operatives, mapping British military capabilities. April 2025, American intelligence agencies intervened. CIA director flew to London. Urgent meeting, classified briefing. Message was blunt. If UK continues compromising security with Chinese deals, US will have to reassess intelligence sharing. Five Eyes partnership at risk. NATO relationships threatened. Special relationship endangered. Starmer was furious. America doesn't dictate British policy. But America wasn't dictating. They were protecting themselves from British security failures. May 2025, the data deal was announced quietly. Chinese companies providing cloud services to British government. Data storage, processing, management, everything GCHQ had warned against, everything security doctrine prohibited, British government data, including sensitive information, stored on Chinese-controlled servers, with contractual guarantees that data wouldn't be accessed inappropriately, as if contracts mattered to Chinese Communist Party. June 2025, whistleblower leaked the secret protocols, documents showing real terms of Chinese deals, what Britain promised in exchange for money. The list was horrifying. Chinese veto over certain British foreign policy positions, guaranteed Chinese access to British markets without reciprocal access, commitment not to criticize Chinese human rights abuses publicly, promise to block anti-China legislation in Parliament. Britain hadn't just taken Chinese money. Britain had sold Chinese Communist Party influence over British sovereignty. July 2025, 1 year since Labour took power. Xi Jinping had achieved what Chinese military strategists dreamed about: deep penetration of British infrastructure, access to British technology, influence over British government, compromise of British security, all without firing a shot, just by exploiting Starmer's financial desperation. August, the 2025, the consequences became visible. British intelligence discovered Chinese backdoors in telecommunications systems, exactly what MI5 warned about. Chinese students caught stealing military research, exactly what security services predicted. Chinese companies using infrastructure access to map British defenses, exactly what defense chiefs feared. Every warning ignored, every prediction proven correct. And Starmer refused to acknowledge the problem. These are isolated incidents. Overall partnership is beneficial. September 2025. Parliament finally learned the full truth. Leaked documents, whistleblower testimony, intelligence briefings made public. MPs were shocked. Opposition demanded inquiry. Even Labour backbenchers were horrified. The Prime Minister has sold British security to China. This is treasonous. We've been colonized economically. Starmer defended himself. We needed investment. China was willing partner. We maintained appropriate safeguards. But the safeguards had all failed, exactly as predicted. October 2025. Five Eyes partnership was suspended for Britain. America Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all reducing intelligence sharing with UK. Reason: cannot share sensitive intelligence with partner whose systems are compromised by Chinese access. The humiliation was total. Britain, founding member of world's most important intelligence alliance, excluded due to Prime Minister's recklessness. November 2025. Chinese leverage became obvious. Britain tried criticizing Chinese human rights abuses in Hong Kong. Routine diplomatic statement. Within hours, Chinese investment was threatened, contracts put on hold, economic retaliation promised. Starmer backed down, statement retracted, apology issued. Britain's foreign policy was now subject to Chinese approval. December 2025, the military implications emerged. Chinese access to British infrastructure meant Chinese understanding of British defenses. In conflict scenario, China would know exactly what to target, how to disable British capabilities, where vulnerabilities were. Defense planners presented nightmare scenarios, UK military compromise before war even started. All because Prime Minister chose Chinese money over British security. December 20th, 2025, new revelations emerged. Chinese companies weren't just investing, they were mapping, recording, storing every piece of British infrastructure, every government system, every military facility, building complete intelligence picture of British vulnerabilities, and Starmer had given them access to do it. December 24th, 2025 today, Christmas Eve. While Britain celebrates, Chinese intelligence officers are working. Accessing systems, copying data, preparing capabilities. Xi Jinping sits in Beijing reviewing reports on British infrastructure, British technology, British weaknesses, all provided by Keir Starmer in exchange for money Britain desperately needed. Starmer sits in number 10, knowing he's made catastrophic error, but unable to fix it without admitting he was wrong. Because reversing Chinese deals means losing billions in investment, admitting security services were right, confessing he sold out national security, facing political destruction, so he pretends everything is fine, defends the deals, ignores the warnings, while China tightens grip on British infrastructure. The cameras turn to Beijing, Xi Jinping with military advisors, reviewing maps of British vulnerabilities, planning next moves. The cameras turn to London, Keir Starmer, defending indefensible deals, ignoring security warnings, hoping problem goes away. Two leaders, one relationship, complete imbalance of power. Xi got everything he wanted: access, influence, control. Starmer got money he needed and sold Britain's security to get it. Who won this deal? The Chinese Communist Party that now has unprecedented access to British systems? Or the British Prime Minister who chose short-term economics over long-term security? The answer is obvious. Xi wins. Starmer loses. Britain pays the price in compromised infrastructure, in stolen technology, in lost sovereignty. The deal that betrayed Britain, signed by a prime minister who needed Chinese money more than he valued British security. And Xi Jinping, just getting started, because he now owns leverage over Britain that will last for decades. Every system China helped build, every infrastructure China invested in, every technology China accessed, all potential weapons in future conflicts, all provided by Keir Starmer, who chose money over security, economics over defense, political survival over national interest. The betrayal is complete and irreversible. Merry Christmas, Britain. Your Prime Minister just sold your security to China.